"We'll give milk for your baby, but you must lie down with one of us," said the Apache women. Her lips were cracked and her throat felt parched. She had been walking for days, carrying little more than a few rations and the hope that somewhere ahead she would find food, water, and safety for herself and her child. Every step was heavy, but she could not stop. Her baby's soft whimpers reminded her that she had to keep moving, no matter how tired she felt. She thought of her husband, who had gone ahead days before to seek work in a distant town. He had promised to send for her once he had secured a place for them. But the plains were vast, and there were no signs of life for miles. Maria had never been so alone. The weight of fear pressed on her chest, almost as if the air itself had grown heavier with each step. Still, she kept going, because stopping meant danger for herself, but especially for her baby. The land stretched endlessly, a mixture of rolling hills, sagebrush, and patches of wildflowers that did little to comfort her. The wind blew in her face, carrying dust and the faint scent of dry earth. She had seen no other travelers for days. The isolation made her heart ache. She thought of her mother, who had taught her how to care for a child even in hard times. She remembered the soft lullabies she had sung, the warmth of her mother's hands, and the small but steady hope she had always felt when someone guided her through difficulties. Now, Maria felt that guidance was gone. As the afternoon sun climbed higher, Maria's stomach growled. She had rationed her food carefully, taking only the smallest bites of dry bread and a few nuts each day. Her baby, too, was restless. Maria's milk was low. She had barely eaten and her body was growing weaker. She tried to nurse the baby, but there was not enough. Tears stung her eyes. She felt a sharp pang of guilt. How could she keep her child alive if she herself was starving? She wrapped the baby closer, whispering softly, "Hold on, little one. We will find help. I promise." Hours passed and Maria's legs ached with every step. The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the plains. She knew she needed to find shelter before nightfall. The thought of sleeping under the open sky, with no protection from cold winds or wild animals, made her shiver. She scanned the horizon, her eyes catching a glimpse of movement far off. At first, she thought it was her imagination, a trick of the heat and dust. But then the shapes became clearer, figures moving with purpose, walking steadily across the land. Maria's heart leapt with cautious hope. She could not tell who they were, but any sign of human life was a blessing. As she drew closer, she realized they were a group of women, dressed in simple, practical clothing that blended with the earth tones of the landscape. They moved together, speaking softly among themselves. Maria slowed her pace, unsure if she should approach. Her baby fussed in her arms, sensing her anxiety. She whispered again, "It's okay, my love. Maybe they can help us." The women noticed her almost immediately. One of them stepped forward, her eyes kind but observant. She waved, motioning for Maria to come closer. Maria hesitated. She had been taught to be wary of strangers, especially in unfamiliar lands, yet the desperation in her heart outweighed caution. She moved forward, keeping her baby close and her steps careful. As she approached, the women greeted her with warm smiles. Their voices were gentle and their gestures welcoming. One of them spoke first, offering water and a small piece of bread. Maria accepted eagerly, tears spilling down her cheeks as she drank and ate. The relief of feeling her thirst and hunger eased even for a moment filled her with gratitude. She looked at her baby, who nursed more eagerly now that she had a little sustenance herself. After a while, the women gathered around Maria and her child. They spoke among themselves in a language that Maria did not fully understand, though she caught a few words. They seemed curious but kind. One of the women finally turned to Maria and said, "We can help feed your baby. You do not need to worry, but you must stay with us for a while. We will teach you our ways so your child can grow strong." Maria felt a mix of hope and fear. The women's words were strange, and she did not fully understand what they meant. She had never stayed in a community so different from her own. Their customs were unfamiliar, and yet she saw the truth in their eyes. They were offering help. She looked down at her baby, sleeping peacefully after feeding, and knew she had no choice but to trust them. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Maria followed the women to a small clearing where a fire had been lit. Smoke rose in soft curls into the twilight, and the women began to prepare a simple meal. Maria sat quietly, observing their movements. Everything was new, the way they arranged food, the songs they hummed, the way they moved with confidence and purpose. She realized that these women had survived in this harsh land for generations. They knew the secrets of survival that she did not. As night fell, Maria lay down on a soft blanket near the fire, her baby in her arms. The women sat nearby, keeping watch, their eyes alert and calm. Maria felt a mixture of relief and unease. She had come so far, and now, for the first time in days, she felt safe. But she knew that life among these women would be different from anything she had ever known. She whispered to her baby, "We are safe for now. We will learn. We will be strong." The stars began to twinkle overhead, and a gentle breeze cooled the warmth of the fire. Maria closed her eyes for a moment, allowing herself to rest, even as questions lingered in her mind. Who were these women? What would they expect of her? How would her life change in the days to come? She did not know the answers, but for now, the small measure of food, water, and shelter was enough. She had survived the journey, and her baby was alive. That was the first step. Maria felt a spark of hope in the darkness. She had walked alone for so long, and now she was not entirely alone. There were others who could guide her, teach her, and help her child grow. She thought of the journey ahead, uncertain and full of challenges, but for the first time she believed that she could face them. She whispered once more to her baby, "We will get through this, together." The night grew deep and quiet. The only sounds were the crackle of the fire, the soft breathing of the women, and the gentle coos of her child. Maria felt a connection forming, not only to the baby in her arms, but also to the people around her. She realized that survival was not just about finding food and water. It was also about trust, community, and learning to navigate a world that could be both beautiful and harsh. As she drifted into sleep, Maria thought of the road behind her and the uncertain path ahead. She knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges, new lessons, and new discoveries. But she also knew that she was not alone. For the first time in many days, she felt a sense of possibility. The journey was far from over, but perhaps, just perhaps, she had found a place where her baby could thrive, and where she could find strength she had never known before. Maria woke to the soft warmth of the sun on her face. The fire from the night before had burned low, leaving only faint smoke curling into the sky. The women around her were already awake, moving quietly through the clearing. Some tended to the small garden, while others prepared food over the fire. Maria's baby stirred in her arms, and she smiled gently, feeling a sense of comfort she had not known in many days. Yet, a small knot of worry lingered in her chest. The day before, the women had spoken words she did not fully understand. They had promised to feed her baby and to teach her how to survive in this land, but there had been hints of something unfamiliar in their instructions. Maria could not yet grasp the full meaning, and that uncertainty made her uneasy. She wondered whether she could trust these strangers, though her heart knew she had little choice. Hunger and exhaustion had made trust a necessity rather than an option. As she watched the women work, one of them, a tall woman with dark hair and bright eyes, approached Maria. "You must come with me," she said gently. Maria followed, carrying her baby close. They walked to a small shaded area near a stream. The woman gestured for Maria to sit and offered fresh water for her and her child. Maria drank eagerly, the cool liquid soothing her parched throat. She handed the cup to her baby, who took small sips, cooing softly. "You will stay with us for a while," the woman explained. "We will teach you. You will learn how to care for your baby and how to survive here." but you must listen and follow our ways." Maria nodded, unsure of what to say. She did not fully understand what the ways meant, but she knew that she had to try. Her child's life depended on it, and she had already seen the kindness of these women. Over the next hours, Maria observed more closely how the women lived. They moved with purpose and confidence, working together seamlessly. Each seemed to know her role, yet they also cared for one another. One woman showed a younger girl how to gather herbs, while another tended to a small fire, carefully placing stones around it to keep it contained. Maria noticed that the children were playing nearby, safe and happy, laughing freely in the open air. She realized that this was not merely a group of strangers. They were a community, a family bound by trust and knowledge passed down through generations. Despite her growing admiration, Maria could not shake the lingering tension. The women's instructions were sometimes cryptic. They spoke in ways that Maria did not fully understand, using gestures and expressions that seemed to carry hidden meaning. When she asked questions, the women would smile kindly but only give small hints. Maria realized that she would have to be patient and careful, learning not just the words but the customs and practices that guided this community. As the sun rose higher, the women began to prepare a meal. Maria watched as they took dried grains, fresh herbs, and a little milk, combining them into a nourishing porridge. The smells filled the air, making her stomach ache with hunger. She helped as best she could, passing utensils and stirring carefully under their watchful eyes. Her baby sat nearby, cooing and reaching for small bits of soft bread the women offered. Maria felt a pang of relief. Her child would be fed, and she would learn how to provide for them both. After the meal, one of the women guided Maria to a quiet spot by the stream. She handed Maria a small basket and explained that she would gather herbs for cooking and healing. Maria followed, trying to memorize the names and shapes of the plants. She was clumsy at first, unsure which leaves were safe and which were not. The woman laughed softly, gently correcting her and showing her the proper technique. Maria's hands were trembling from nerves and excitement, but she felt a growing sense of accomplishment. She was learning something new, and each small success strengthened her confidence. As the afternoon wore on, Maria began to notice patterns in the women's behavior. They worked in harmony, yet each had moments of solitude for reflection or rest. Maria realized that their community was built on mutual respect and understanding. Everyone contributed, but no one was forced. The women spoke openly with one another, sharing stories, wisdom, and laughter. Maria felt a longing for that sense of belonging, something she had not experienced in her journey. Perhaps, she thought, this place could become a home, even if only for a short while. One of the older women approached Maria with a gentle smile. "We can teach you everything you need to care for your baby," she said, "but you must understand our ways. There are customs and rituals that may seem strange, but they keep our children safe and our community strong." Maria nodded, trying to absorb every word. She realized that survival here was not just about food and shelter. It was about understanding people, traditions, and the careful balance of nature and community. Later that evening, Maria and the baby sat near the fire as the other women shared stories of their lives. They spoke of challenges they had faced, of storms and shortages, of the lessons learned from each hardship. Maria listened intently, absorbing the knowledge and courage in their words. She felt inspired by their resilience. Though the stories were different from her own life, the underlying truth was the same. Perseverance, care, and community were the keys to survival. Maria's anxiety slowly began to ease, replaced by curiosity and determination. She asked questions about the herbs, the foods, and the ways the women cared for each other's children. The women answered patiently, demonstrating with careful hands and clear explanations. Maria realized that she was beginning to understand, not just the words but the rhythm and meaning of their practices. She felt a quiet sense of pride. She was learning to adapt, to survive, and to nurture her child in ways she had never imagined. As night fell, the women prepared a small area for Maria to rest. She lay down with her baby beside her, feeling the warmth of the fire and the quiet watchfulness of the community. She thought of the journey that had brought her here, the long, exhausting walk across the plains, the fear and the hunger. And yet, she realized that this place, strange and unfamiliar as it was, offered hope. Maria knew that the days ahead would be filled with challenges, but she also knew that she was not alone. Before falling asleep, Maria reflected on her fear and hesitation. The customs of these women had seemed strange at first, even intimidating. Yet now she saw the wisdom and care in everything they did. Their ways were not meant to harm or confuse her. They were meant to guide, protect, and nurture. Maria felt a deep sense of gratitude. She whispered softly to her baby, "We will learn, we will grow. Together, we will find our strength." That night, Maria dreamed of a world where she could live in harmony with those around her, a place where her baby could thrive and she could find knowledge and companionship. She dreamed of the gentle hands that guided her, the laughter of children, and the rhythm of life in the community. Though the journey had been long and uncertain, she felt that she had taken the first real step towards safety, understanding, and hope. The days that followed were not easy. Maria struggled to remember the names of herbs, to understand the instructions, and to find the confidence to act independently. But each day, she grew stronger. The women's patience and guidance gave her courage, and she learned to rely on her instincts and observations. Maria discovered that learning a new way of life was not just about following rules. It was about listening, watching, and adapting. Slowly, she began to anticipate the needs of her baby and the rhythms of the community. She could now gather herbs with ease, prepare simple meals, and care for her child with confidence. The initial fear and doubt that had gripped her upon arrival began to fade, replaced by a sense of belonging and purpose. Maria felt that she was part of something larger than herself, a living, breathing community of care and resilience. By the end of the week, Maria realized she had changed. She was still the same mother, still the same person who had begun the journey alone across the plains. But now, she carried knowledge, confidence, and hope. The women had become her teachers, guides, and allies. And while she did not yet fully understand all their customs, she respected and trusted them. She knew that she would continue to learn, to adapt, and to grow for the sake of her child and for herself. The sun rose over the horizon, painting the sky with soft shades of pink and gold. Maria woke slowly, feeling the warmth of the morning on her face. Her baby slept peacefully beside her, and for the first time since she had begun her journey, Maria felt a quiet sense of belonging. The women of the community were already awake, moving gracefully through the clearing. Some collected water from the nearby stream, while others prepared small bundles of herbs and grains. Maria watched them with growing fascination. She had been with these women for several days now, and each day had brought a new lesson. What had seemed confusing or intimidating at first was slowly beginning to make sense. Their practices, their rituals, and even their quiet gestures all carried meaning. Maria had learned to observe carefully, to pay attention to subtle signs, and to ask questions without fear. Every new piece of knowledge strengthened her confidence and deepened her understanding of this community. One of the older women approached Maria that morning with a gentle smile. She motioned for Maria to follow her to a shaded area near a cluster of trees. Maria, holding her baby close, walked beside her, feeling a mixture of anticipation and nervousness. The woman gestured for her to sit and began to explain more about the traditions of the community. She spoke slowly, choosing her words carefully, while also using gestures and demonstrations to ensure Maria understood. Maria listened intently. She realized that many of the women's practices were not arbitrary. They had been passed down through generations as a way to protect children, strengthen families, and maintain harmony. The rituals that had initially frightened Maria were revealed to be methods of teaching care, patience, and respect for one another. She felt a wave of relief. What had seemed strange and even threatening before was actually a form of guidance, a way to ensure that both she and her baby could thrive. After their conversation, the woman invited Maria to participate in a simple ritual involving the care of children. Maria watched as the women gathered in a circle, each holding a baby or a small child, and spoke softly in their native language. The rhythm of their words, the gentle movements of their hands, and the careful attention they gave to each child created a sense of calm and safety. Maria realized that this was not just a ritual, it was a way of teaching, of sharing knowledge and care across generations. Maria hesitated at first. She had never been part of such a ceremony, and she feared she might make a mistake. But the older woman smiled reassuringly and guided her hands, showing her how to cradle her baby and move gently with the group. As she followed their example, Maria felt a deep connection, not only to the other women but also to her own child. She understood that this practice was about trust, nurturing, and community, and that she was no longer alone in her journey. Throughout the day, Maria continued to learn and observe. The women showed her how to identify edible plants, how to prepare nutritious meals for children, and how to create simple remedies for common ailments. Each lesson was practical, rooted in experience and tradition. Maria marveled at the depth of their knowledge and the care they put into every action. She realized that survival in this land required not just physical strength, but also wisdom, patience, and the ability to understand and work with others. As the afternoon sun climbed higher, Maria found herself reflecting on the journey that had brought her here. She remembered the long, exhausting walk across the plains, the fear and uncertainty, and the moments when she had felt she could go no further. And now she was here, learning, growing, and slowly becoming part of a community that valued her and her child. The transformation was both exhilarating and humbling. By evening, the women invited Maria to join them in preparing a communal meal. She helped gather grains, vegetables, and herbs, following their careful instructions. The process was meticulous, but Maria found joy in the rhythm of the work. She began to see the beauty in their way of life, the harmony, the care, and the deep sense of responsibility each woman felt for the others. When the meal was ready, they all sat together, sharing the food and conversation. Maria felt a profound sense of gratitude. After the meal, the women gathered around the fire to share stories. Each woman spoke of challenges she had faced, of hardships and triumphs, and of lessons learned through experience. Maria listened closely, absorbing the wisdom in their words. She was struck by the resilience and courage that each story revealed. Despite difficulties and uncertainty, these women had found ways to survive, care for their children, and create a supportive, nurturing community. Maria realized that she was beginning to understand not only the practical knowledge of survival, but also the deeper values of the community: compassion, cooperation, and respect. She reflected on her own life, the struggles she had faced, and the ways she could carry these lessons forward. She understood that learning to survive in this land meant more than acquiring skills. It meant embracing a mindset of resilience, empathy, and adaptability. That night, as she lay with her baby, Maria thought about the women who had welcomed her so openly. She realized that their guidance was not just about survival, it was about transformation. She was learning to see the world through new eyes, to understand the importance of trust and collaboration, and to recognize the strength that came from connecting with others. Her fears had not disappeared entirely, but they had been replaced by curiosity, respect, and a sense of purpose. In the following days, Maria continued to practice what she had learned. She experimented with preparing meals, gathering herbs, and caring for her baby in new ways. The women offered gentle corrections and encouragement, helping her to refine her skills and build confidence. Maria began to feel a sense of pride and accomplishment. She was no longer the timid, uncertain mother who had arrived days ago. She was becoming capable, knowledgeable, and resilient. As the days turned into a week, Maria also began to understand the subtler aspects of the community. She observed the way the women communicated without words, the small gestures that conveyed respect and care, and the ways they supported one another without expecting recognition. She realized that belonging was not about fitting in perfectly or following rules blindly. It was about understanding, empathy, and mutual support. Maria's connection with her baby deepened as well. She had learned to recognize her child's needs more quickly, to soothe and comfort, and to provide nourishment in ways that went beyond mere food. The bond between mother and child grew stronger, nurtured by the lessons she had learned and the environment of care and safety around her. Maria felt a profound sense of fulfillment and hope for the future. One afternoon, an older woman took Maria aside and spoke softly. "You are learning well," she said. "You are becoming strong not just for yourself but for your child. Remember that strength comes from patience, observation, and understanding. Trust yourself and trust the knowledge that has been shared with you." Maria listened carefully, absorbing the words like sunlight on thirsty soil. She felt a deep sense of respect and gratitude for the guidance she had received. As evening fell once again, Maria sat by the fire with her baby in her lap, reflecting on all she had learned. She realized that the initial fear and confusion she had felt upon arrival had been transformed into understanding and trust. She had discovered not only practical skills, but also a sense of community, resilience, and compassion that would guide her for the rest of her life. The stars began to twinkle in the night sky, and Maria felt a sense of peace she had not known in a long time. She whispered softly to her baby, "We are safe. We are learning, we are growing." She knew that the journey ahead would still bring challenges, but she also knew that she was no longer alone. She had found guidance, friendship, and hope in a place she had never expected. In the quiet of the night, Maria thought about the lessons that extended beyond survival. She realized that trust and courage were as important as food and shelter, and that understanding others could transform fear into friendship. She felt a deep gratitude for the women who had welcomed her, taught her, and shown her a new way of living. By the end of the week, Maria was no longer simply a visitor. She had begun to embrace the rhythms of life among these women, learning to move with their patterns, observe their methods, and care for her child with confidence. She felt a sense of purpose and belonging that had been missing from her life for so long. She understood that the lessons she had learned would stay with her, guiding her through future challenges and helping her provide a strong, nurturing environment for her baby. Maria finally understood the truth in the women's words. Survival was not just about endurance. It was about learning, adapting, and connecting with others. She had faced fear, uncertainty, and exhaustion, yet she had emerged stronger, wiser, and more capable. The bond she had formed with the community and the lessons she had absorbed would remain with her forever, shaping not only her own life but the life of her child as well. The morning air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of sage and earth. Maria awoke to the gentle coos of her baby, who stirred with the first light of day. Outside, the women of the community were already moving with purpose, preparing the day's tasks and routines. Maria felt a renewed sense of energy. Over the past weeks, she had learned much, but today she sensed that there was still more to understand, lessons that could challenge her in new ways and deepen her connection to the community. As she prepared herself for the day, one of the older women approached with a small bundle of herbs. "Today, you will help with the children," she said. "You will also observe carefully. There is much to learn about patience, attention, and care. Not everything is easy, but each step is important." Maria nodded, understanding that this was a moment to grow. She took her baby's hand gently, securing the child in a soft cloth on her back, and followed the woman toward the open area where several other children were already playing. The children ran and laughed freely, chasing one another around the clearing. Maria's heart lifted at the sight, but she also felt nervous. She had learned basic care for her own child, but managing multiple children at once was a new challenge. The older woman guided her patiently, showing her how to observe each child, anticipate needs, and intervene gently when disagreements arose. Maria tried to follow these lessons, her hands and mind busy, her heart attentive. She began to notice the small signals each child gave, a tug on a sleeve, a glance, a sigh that told her what they needed before they even spoke. As the morning progressed, Maria faced her first real test. Two children had started to quarrel over a small toy, their voices rising in frustration. Maria took a deep breath and remembered what the older woman had taught her: patience, calmness, and gentle guidance. She knelt between them, speaking softly, helping them find another way to share. It took time, and there were moments when she felt unsure, but gradually the children calmed. Maria felt a quiet sense of triumph. She realized that care was not just about providing food or comfort. It was about understanding, guiding, and creating harmony. Afterward, the older woman led Maria to a nearby stream. "There are lessons here as well," she said. "Observe the water, the plants, and the land. Understand the balance of nature, for it is part of survival. Respect it, and it will sustain you." Maria watched as the woman showed her how to find clean water, identify safe plants for nourishment, and recognize signs of danger. Each lesson was practical, yet it carried a deeper meaning: connection, mindfulness, and responsibility. Maria began to see the world differently, noticing details she had once overlooked, understanding the intricate balance that allowed life to thrive in this environment. The afternoon brought another challenge. One of the younger children fell and scraped a knee while running near the rocks. Maria's heart leapt, and she hurried to help. The older women gathered quickly, showing her how to clean and bandage the wound, all the while reassuring the child. Maria's hands shook at first, but she followed their instructions carefully. When the child was comforted and smiling again, Maria felt a surge of confidence. She realized that fear and uncertainty were natural, but careful attention, knowledge, and calmness could transform those feelings into strength. Later, the women called Maria to assist in preparing the evening meal. They moved together in harmony, each person taking on tasks they had mastered. Maria followed their lead, chopping vegetables, stirring grains, and seasoning with herbs she had learned to recognize. The meal was simple but nourishing, prepared with care and skill. As they ate together, Maria observed the community around her, the way they supported one another, shared responsibilities, and respected each individual's contribution. She felt a deep sense of gratitude and belonging. Even as she grew confident, Maria knew that each day would bring new challenges. The women had begun to introduce more complex tasks, requiring her to observe, think, and act independently. She learned to plan meals, manage time, and anticipate the needs of her child and others. She was no longer merely following instructions. She was participating, contributing, and understanding the wisdom behind each action. The community had become a living classroom, and Maria was both student and practitioner. As the day drew to a close, one of the older women spoke to Maria privately. "You have learned much, but there is still more," she said gently. "True understanding comes when you face challenges and remain calm. Fear is natural, but courage and patience will guide you. Today you showed promise. Tomorrow you will face something more." Maria nodded, her heart quickening with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. She realized that growth often came from discomfort and challenge, and she was ready to embrace it. That night Maria lay near the fire, her baby asleep against her chest. She reflected on the lessons of the day, the moments of triumph, the small victories in guiding children, and the understanding she had gained about nature, care, and patience. She understood that survival and growth were not simply about physical needs, but also about mental and emotional strength. Each lesson she learned made her more confident, more aware, and more capable. In the quiet hours before sleep, Maria thought about her journey so far. She remembered the long, lonely walk across the plains, the hunger, the fear, and the uncertainty. Now she was part of something greater than herself. She had found guidance, support, and wisdom in the women who had welcomed her. She realized that her journey was not over, but she was no longer facing it alone. She had gained knowledge, strength, and a new perspective that would help her face whatever challenges lay ahead. The following days brought further tests of Maria's skills and understanding. She learned to care for multiple children, manage daily routines, and recognize subtle signs in both people and nature. Each day required her to focus, adapt, and act with care. There were moments of frustration, when mistakes were made or when outcomes did not go as planned. But the women's patience, guidance, and encouragement helped her persevere. Maria discovered that mistakes were not failures but opportunities to learn, refine skills, and grow stronger. One afternoon, a storm approached. Dark clouds gathered, and the wind began to howl across the plains. Maria felt a surge of anxiety, fearing the safety of the children and her baby. The older women quickly guided everyone to secure their belongings, build protective barriers, and gather children in safe areas. Maria followed their instructions, moving quickly and decisively. As the rain poured and the wind lashed around them, Maria felt the truth of the lessons she had learned. Calmness, observation, and trust in knowledge allowed her to act effectively in the face of fear. By the time the storm passed, Maria felt a profound sense of accomplishment and confidence. As the days and nights passed, Maria continued to grow. She began to understand the balance of giving and receiving, teaching and learning, leading and following. She saw the value of community and the importance of shared responsibility. She began to anticipate the needs of her child and others, to act with patience and empathy, and to embrace challenges as opportunities for growth. Maria felt stronger, wiser, and more capable than ever before. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and gold, Maria sat near the fire with her baby. She watched the women moving gracefully through their tasks, their faces calm and confident. Maria realized how far she had come. She had faced fear, uncertainty, and exhaustion, and she had emerged stronger, more knowledgeable, and deeply connected to this community. She understood the importance of trust, patience, and courage, and she knew that these lessons would guide her for the rest of her life. As the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, Maria whispered softly to her baby, "We are strong. We are learning. We are ready for what comes next." She felt a quiet sense of peace, knowing that the challenges ahead would be met with knowledge, courage, and the support of the community around her. She had discovered the true strength that comes from patience, understanding, and connection, and she knew that her journey, though not yet complete, had brought her to a place of hope and resilience. The first light of dawn spread gently across the plains, painting the sky in soft shades of pink and gold. Maria awoke, feeling the warmth of the sun and the quiet presence of her baby resting against her chest. She had grown accustomed to the rhythms of this place, to the gentle guidance of the women who had welcomed her, and to the calm that came from knowing she was part of a community. Yet today felt different. Maria sensed that a new chapter in her journey was beginning, one where she would take the lessons she had learned and apply them with confidence and independence. The women gathered in the clearing as usual, but this morning they spoke to Maria with a tone of encouragement. "Today you will make decisions on your own," one of the older women said. "You have learned well. It is time to trust yourself." Maria felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. For weeks, she had followed instructions carefully, observed, and learned. Now she would put all that knowledge into practice on her own. She took a deep breath, feeling her heart beat with anticipation. Her first task of the day was to care for several children while preparing the morning meal. Maria carried her baby on her back and moved among the children with gentle guidance, anticipating their needs and stepping in when necessary. She applied everything she had learned: how to calm disputes, how to encourage sharing, how to notice the subtle signals of hunger, discomfort, or fatigue. For the first time, she felt a deep sense of pride in her abilities. She was capable, attentive, and calm under pressure. As she prepared the meal, Maria carefully selected fresh herbs and grains, recalling the lessons taught by the older women. She worked efficiently, chopping, mixing, and cooking with a confidence that had grown steadily over the past weeks. The children watched her with admiration and curiosity, and some even offered to help, passing small utensils or ingredients. Maria felt a profound sense of connection, realizing that she was not only learning but also contributing meaningfully to the community. After the meal, Maria led the children to the nearby stream. She showed them how to gather clean water safely, identify safe plants, and observe nature without disturbing it. The older women watched quietly, offering smiles of approval but allowing Maria to guide the children herself. She noticed how attentive she had become, able to anticipate problems before they arose and respond with calmness and patience. The realization that she had grown into a confident caregiver filled her with gratitude and joy. As the afternoon unfolded, Maria was presented with another challenge. A small child had wandered too far while playing and had become frightened. Maria's heart leapt, but she remembered the lessons of patience, observation, and trust. She approached calmly, speaking softly to reassure the child and guiding them back to the group. The older women observed silently, and when the child returned safely, Maria felt a sense of accomplishment that was deeper than any she had experienced before. She realized that courage was not the absence of fear, but the ability to act thoughtfully despite it. Later, Maria participated in preparing a communal meal that would serve the entire group. She coordinated with the women, offering suggestions, following their guidance, and taking responsibility for several key tasks. The meal was simple but nourishing, and as they sat together to eat, Maria felt a profound sense of belonging. She understood the importance of collaboration, respect, and shared responsibility, and she recognized that the strength of the community came from each person contributing their skills and care. As the day drew to a close, one of the older women approached Maria and spoke gently. "You have grown," she said. "You have learned the ways of care, patience, and understanding. You are strong and you are ready to carry this knowledge into your life beyond this place." Maria felt a wave of emotion. She had arrived here weary, fearful, and uncertain, and now she stood transformed, capable, confident, and deeply connected to the wisdom of these women. That evening, Maria sat near the fire with her baby in her lap, reflecting on her journey. She thought of the long walk across the plains, the exhaustion, hunger, and fear that had once consumed her. She remembered the moments of doubt, the uncertainty about whether she could survive or care for her child. And now she realized how far she had come. She had learned not only practical skills but also patience, trust, resilience, and the profound power of community. Maria realized that the lessons she had absorbed would guide her for the rest of her life. She had learned that survival was about more than food and shelter. It was about understanding, connection, and the courage to face challenges with calm and thoughtfulness. She understood the value of patience, the importance of empathy, and the strength that comes from trusting herself while also seeking guidance from those who had walked the path before her. As the stars began to twinkle above, Maria thought of the journey still ahead. She would soon leave this place and continue toward her husband and her home village. Yet she knew that she carried with her something far more valuable than directions or supplies. She carried wisdom, resilience, and the deep confidence that she could face whatever challenges lay ahead. She whispered softly to her baby, "We are ready. We are strong. We will face the world together." The women gathered around the fire, offering blessings and words of encouragement. They reminded Maria that the knowledge she had gained was a gift, meant to be carried forward, shared, and applied. Maria thanked them from the bottom of her heart, feeling a sense of gratitude that went beyond words. She understood that these women had not only nurtured her child but had nurtured her spirit, teaching her to be courageous, thoughtful, and compassionate. In the following days, Maria prepared to depart. She packed her belongings carefully, gathered herbs and supplies, and took her baby's hand. The community had taught her so much, and she felt a deep desire to honor that knowledge by applying it in her own life. She looked around at the women who had guided her, at the children she had cared for, and at the land that had been both harsh and nurturing. A sense of gratitude and peace filled her heart. As she began the journey back toward her husband and her home village, Maria felt different than when she had arrived. She carried not just the lessons of survival, but also the wisdom of empathy, patience, and trust. She knew that the journey ahead would have challenges, but she also knew that she was prepared. She had learned to face uncertainty with courage, to act thoughtfully in difficult moments, and to nurture both herself and her child with care and love. Along the way, Maria reflected on the transformation she had undergone. She had entered the community as a weary, uncertain mother, unsure of what the future held. She had learned to observe, listen, and adapt. She had gained confidence in her abilities, strength in her spirit, and a profound understanding of human connection. The lessons she had learned would guide her decisions, shape her parenting, and allow her to thrive in ways she had never imagined. By the time Maria and her baby reached the edge of the plains, the sun was rising once again. She paused to look back at the path she had traveled, feeling a sense of accomplishment and pride. The women of the community, the children she had cared for, and the lessons she had learned would always remain in her memory. She felt a deep appreciation for the kindness, wisdom, and guidance she had received. As Maria continued toward her home, she carried with her not only her baby but also a newfound strength. She understood that life would always bring challenges, but she had learned how to face them with patience, courage, and understanding. She whispered softly to her child, "We are ready for whatever comes. We will grow, we will thrive, and we will carry these lessons with us." The journey ahead remained uncertain, but Maria no longer feared it. She had discovered the power of trust, empathy, and resilience. She had seen firsthand how community, guidance, and patience could transform fear into confidence and uncertainty into understanding. And as she walked, she knew that she and her child were stronger, wiser, and ready to face whatever life had in store. As the plains stretched out before her, Maria felt a sense of hope and possibility that she had never known. She had survived the journey, learned vital lessons, and grown in ways she could not have imagined. The world, once vast and intimidating, now seemed full of opportunity, guided by the wisdom she had gained and the strength she had discovered within herself. She and her baby would face the future together, carrying the lessons of courage, care, and community into every step of their lives.